Do you know the ancient prophecy that foretold Aeneas, the noble Trojan hero, would rise from the ashes of Troy to found the mighty empire of Rome? Picture the scene. Troy, a city once proud, now engulfed in flames. The night sky glows with the crimson fire, while the earth trembles under the weight of its destruction. Amidst the chaos, Aeneas, son of the goddess Venus and the mortal Anchises, stands tall. His heart is torn between the duty to defend his fallen city and the whisper of destiny calling him toward an unknown future. He does not fight for Troy's ruins, for the gods have chosen him for a higher purpose. Lead them, Hector's ghost urges him in a vision. You must live to forge a new kingdom. Guided by fate, Aeneas gathers the remnants of Troy, its people and its sacred relics, and sets out on a perilous journey, not knowing what lies ahead. As the winds howl over the waves, the gods watch. The wrath of Juno looms, casting storms to hinder his path, while Venus's gentle hand shields her son. Aeneas embarks upon the sea, bound for a land far away, where the greatest trials await. Yet, deep within his soul, he knows his destiny is not his alone. It belongs to the people, to Rome, and to the empire that history will never forget. As the fires of Troy blazed under the relentless assault of the Greeks, Aeneas stood firm, sword in hand, fighting with the fierce spirit of a Trojan warrior. The air was thick with smoke, the clashing of weapons and the cries of the fallen. But then, through the haze of battle, a figure emerged. Hector, his form pale and ghostly. His once proud armor was battered, his face shadowed by the weight of death. "Aeneas!" he called, his voice urgent but distant, like a whisper carried on the wind. "You must not stay here," Hector implored, his eyes burning with the gravity of fate. "Troy is lost. Take the sacred relics, the household gods, and lead our people to safety." Aeneas hesitated, his heart torn between his duty as a warrior and this prophetic command. He could feel the weight of Hector's words settling on him like a mantle of destiny. With a heavy heart, Aeneas gathered his family, the aged Anchises, his son Aeneas, and the sacred relics. As they fled through the crumbling city streets, the flames of Troy illuminated the path behind them, casting long shadows of the destruction they left behind. Every step away from the city felt like a betrayal of his homeland, but he pressed on, the enormity of his new task pressing on his shoulders like a burden too heavy to bear. Could he, a man forged in the fires of war, truly lead his people to a new beginning? The question echoed in his mind, unanswered, as they disappeared into the night. Aeneas and his people ventured across the vast, restless sea, their hearts heavy with the weight of prophecy. The Mediterranean stretched endlessly before them, a mirror of their uncertain future. Yet they were not alone. The gods watched, some with favor, others with malice. Juno, still seething from the fall of Troy, cast her gaze upon them. Her hatred burned as fiercely as the fires that once consumed the Trojan walls. "I will not permit this!" she cried, her voice reverberating across the heavens. With a wave of her hand, she summoned dark clouds and fierce winds, hurling the fleet into chaos. The sky darkened, and thunder roared as the winds howled like wild beasts. The ships were battered by relentless waves, tossed like autumn leaves caught in a tempest. Aeneas, at the helm, gripped the wood as rain lashed against his face. His men shouted, their voices lost in the storm's fury. "Hold steady!" Aeneas commanded, his own heart pounding with the weight of the god's fury. Every moment felt like a test, not just of his leadership, but of his very soul. His resolve, though shaken, remained firm, for he knew that their destiny lay not in these waters, but on the shores of Italy. Despite Juno's tempestuous fury, Venus, ever watchful, descended with grace to shield her son from peril. With a mother's fierce determination, she sought the aid of Neptune, lord of the seas. As his trident pierced the storm's heart, the raging waves stilled, and the tumultuous winds whispered into silence. Yet the hand of fate was not yet done with Aeneas and his weary crew. As their ships drifted, Battered and broken, they were cast upon the golden shores of Carthage, where Queen Dido reigned. Upon seeing her son shipwrecked, Venus devised a plan, for she knew well the trials still ahead. She wove a spell so that Dido, the queen, would look upon Aeneas with eyes not of a ruler, but of a woman kindled by love. Dido, filled with desire and warmth, welcomed the hero with open arms, her voice trembling as she whispered, "Stay here, Aeneas. Let this be your home." Her words hung heavy in the air, filled with longing and the hope of a shared future. Yet Aeneas, though touched by her affection, stood silent, the weight of his destiny pulling him away, even as he felt the sorrow of the choice he would soon have to make. The sea had calmed, but the storms within Aeneas were only beginning. For a fleeting moment, Aeneas found solace in Carthage, where the warmth of Queen Dido's love soothed the pain of his past. The sun bathed the palace in a golden glow as Dido's laughter echoed through its halls, and Aeneas, burdened by fate, allowed himself to dream of peace. But the gods are seldom merciful to those who stray from destiny. One evening, Mercury, swift messenger of the gods, descended from the heavens, his voice cutting through the calm like a blade. "Aeneas," he intoned, "your path lies not here but in Italy. Jupiter commands it. Your fate is to build a new empire. Carthage is not your home." Aeneas felt the weight of his heart grow heavy. The love he bore for Dido tugged at him, yet the pull of duty was stronger, an unyielding force. In the stillness of the night, he approached Dido, his steps reluctant, as though the very earth beneath him protested his departure. "I must go," he whispered, his voice thick with sorrow. Dido's eyes, once soft with affection, hardened like stone. "You would leave me for a fate that is not yours to choose?" she demanded, her voice trembling with both fury and despair. But Aeneas had no choice, and though the pain gnawed at him, he turned away, leaving the queen to her heartbreak. As his ship slipped away from the shores of Carthage, the winds howled, echoing Dido's curse. "May your descendants know war! May their blood be spilled for eternity!" she cried, her voice carried by the winds. And in the twilight of her despair, Dido took her own life, sealing the enmity between Carthage and the future empire of Rome. Aeneas's journey through peril deepened as sorrow gripped him with the loss of his father, Anchises. The seas were treacherous, but the weight of grief was heavier still. As he stepped into the shadowy realm of the underworld, the air around him was thick with an eerie silence. His steps echoed in the dim passage, lit only by flickering flames of the dead. His heart raced, not out of fear, but from the solemn anticipation of the encounter that awaited him. In the depths of the underworld, Aeneas found Anchises standing in a serene light, his face calm yet filled with the wisdom of what was to come. "Father," Aeneas breathed, his voice filled with longing, "I seek your counsel." Anchises smiled softly, placing a hand on his son's shoulder. "The fates have much in store for you, my son." His voice carried the weight of eternity. Anchises then gestured towards a vision, grand and overwhelming, a vision of Rome, resplendent and eternal. He pointed to two figures, Romulus and Remus, the legendary founders who would shape this future. "You will not live to see it," Anchises murmured, his tone reverent, "but your legacy, Aeneas, will shape the world for centuries." As the vision unfolded, Aeneas's breath caught in his chest. The greatness of Rome, the gleaming structures, the triumphs of warriors and leaders, all this would come from the seeds he was planting now, through blood, sacrifice, and duty. The weight of destiny pressed heavily upon him, yet it also gave him purpose. Anchises' voice echoed in his soul as Aeneas returned to the world of the living. Emerging from the shadows of the underworld, Aeneas set foot on the shores of Italy, but peace was not his to claim. The land, though ripe with promise, was filled with tribes who viewed the Trojan refugees as interlopers. Among these tribes, Turnus, prince of the Rutuli, stood defiantly. His eyes burned with pride and fury, seeing Aeneas not as a savior, but as a usurper. The clashing of swords echoed through the hills as Turnus and Aeneas led their men into brutal conflict. Blood stained the earth, while the very air buzzed with the presence of the gods. Above the mortal realm, the deities watched closely. Juno, still fueled by her deep hatred for the Trojans, whispered bitter winds into Turnus's ear, pushing him ever deeper into rage. "This land is yours," she hissed, her voice like a tempest. "Do not let it be taken." Yet Venus, ever the protector of her son, stood vigilant. She pleaded with Jupiter, the ruler of gods, to secure Aeneas's fate. "The prophecy must be fulfilled," she urged, her words as steady as the stars. Jupiter, from his golden throne, gazed upon the battlefield, knowing that destiny was not to be altered. In the heart of battle, it was not just steel that clashed, but wills. The mortal struggle reflected the tension between gods. Each movement, every drop of sweat, echoed the divine war above. Victory would not be decided by strength alone, but by the balance of fate and the will of the gods. In the final, fateful moment of battle, the sky darkened as Aeneas, burdened by destiny, stood face to face with Turnus. The air was thick with tension, their breaths heavy with the weight of what lay before them. Turnus, fierce and unyielding, had already claimed many lives in his attempt to defend his land from the Trojan invaders. His armor gleamed under the dying light, but there was something deeper in his eyes, a mixture of pride and fear, knowing that this was the battle that would decide all. Aeneas, steady and resolute, carried the weight of both his past and future. Behind him were the ruins of Troy, and ahead lay the birth of a new empire, foretold by the gods. He could feel the eyes of the divine watching, their presence pressing upon him. In the silence before the clash, he heard the echo of his father's voice from the underworld. "Remember, you are destined for something greater." His sword, an extension of his will, gleamed with purpose as he stepped forward. Their swords met in a deafening clash, the force shaking the earth beneath them. With each strike, the fate of Rome itself trembled. Finally, with a swift and powerful blow, Aeneas struck down Turnus. As his enemy fell, the air seemed to still, and in that moment, Aeneas knew that this was not just a victory of a single battle. It was the beginning of something far more profound. Peace would come, but it would be the foundation of a legacy far greater than any mortal could comprehend: the rise of Rome. With Turnus vanquished, Aeneas stood tall, his sword still gleaming under the Italian sun, the weight of his destiny finally lifting from his shoulders. In this moment of victory, he wed Lavinia, the fair daughter of King Latinus, and together they founded the city of Lavinium, a beacon of hope for the Trojan people. The air was thick with the scent of the earth, newly tilled for the first seeds of a new civilization. Aeneas's heart was heavy with memories of fallen comrades and the sacrifices made along the way, but his resolve had never wavered. "This is the beginning," he whispered to himself, watching the first stones of Lavinium rise. From Lavinium, the bloodline of Aeneas would continue, flourishing through his descendants until the fateful birth of Romulus and Remus, the twins destined to establish Rome. The vision of his father, Anchises, had foretold this moment during their journey into the underworld. As the winds carried the whispers of fate, Aeneas knew his work was done, but the empire he had sown was only just awakening. Aeneas's tale became woven into the very fabric of Roman identity, echoing through time as a testament to duty, sacrifice, and the unwavering favor of the gods. His journey, born from the ashes of Troy, carried forth the indomitable spirit that would one day shape the mightiest empire the world had ever seen. The tale of Aeneas is woven with the threads of fate, a journey shaped by the gods and written in the stars. Imagine the storm-tossed seas, waves crashing against his battered ship as Aeneas, with eyes set on a distant shore, navigates through trials both mortal and divine. The winds howl with Juno's fury, her wrath unrelenting, yet Aeneas stands firm. "It is not the storm I fear," he murmurs, his voice steady. but failing the destiny laid before me. As Aeneas presses on, the weight of his duty grows heavier with each step, the memory of Troy's fall echoing in his heart. He is a man torn between love and obligation, seen most deeply in his farewell to Queen Dido. Her sorrow clings to the air like smoke as she pleads, "Stay, Aeneas, let us build something here." But he shakes his head, knowing that the gods have written his path elsewhere. "I must go," he whispers, though the words tear at his soul. His legacy lies not in the battles fought, nor in the miles traveled, but in the founding of an empire, Rome. Through sacrifice and struggle, Aeneas carves a future from the ruins of the past, reminding us that the greatest journeys are not defined by the road taken, but by the destiny fulfilled. His story endures, etched into the very bones of Rome, an eternal reminder that fate, though cruel at times, is the architect of greatness.